Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CR Sports Podcast, Season 5, Episode 2. Really should have been Episode 3, but we had a little bit of technical difficulties a couple weeks ago. But we're excited to be back, and this first month of the NFL season has been exciting, and postseason baseball's here.
Yeah, you can see me repping the Orioles jersey. Big ALDS game too today, but I think we're going to focus mostly on football as we're about 4 games in for most teams, 5 for a couple as Week 5 in the NFL is underway, and we have a couple bye weeks actually this week, so not a full slate of games, but still some good ones to talk about.
And Garrett, you can see me repping the Cowboys NFC East 2021 division champs as they got a big game tonight against the San Francisco 49ers, a team that knocked them out of that year's playoffs and the team that knocked them out of last year's playoffs in 2022. This is a rivalry that has gone back since the 80s, and it's been renewed here in the 2020s. And the Cowboys have a chance to go into Santa Clara tonight and make a name for themselves in this 2023 NFL season.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one a little more, but first we'll start off with the Thursday night game between the Bears and the Commanders. The Commanders coming off a little bit of a roller coaster after they almost went into Philly and took that one from the Eagles, handing them their first loss, but instead it was a heartbreaker of a loss. Thought Ron Rivera was going to go for 2 once they made it 31-30 on the last play of the game, but decided not to, and the Eagles ended up winning in overtime. Then the Commanders pretty much no-showed at home against the Bears, who picked up their first win since almost a year ago. It was before Halloween last year. Chase Claypool played 10 games for the Bears, didn't win a single one, but the 14-game losing streak came to an end, mostly in part because of DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, I have him in one of my fantasy leagues. I love him. 49 points. Couldn't ask for anything more. Practically already won me the game this week. And it's really the first explosion you've seen from the Bears, even though in that Denver game they put up points and just their defense couldn't hold. But I guess it's something promising to see as a Bears fan. But this is kind of the same old of what you saw last year. They're going to win a couple games, and then they might get back into their losing habits. If the Bears can find a way to string together some wins, it'll just keep their fan base a little bit more happy.
Yeah, well, if the Panthers keep going in the direction that they are, which is 0-4, likely going to be 0-5, the Lions are beating up on them pretty good. But the Bears are going to have the first and the second pick as long as they finish in one of those 2 spots. So it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. And if they end up in that 1 and 2 spot, you have to imagine they dump Justin Fields, and I think they're going to have to take Caleb Williams. And Justin Fields' time in Chicago will be over. I don't think it'll be over in the NFL, but if it's another losing season that badly, I don't think they can keep moving forward with him.
Yeah, that's what people have been saying, and we'll see what happens there. And Week 5's London game, which was this morning actually, with the Jaguars pulling off the upset over the Bills 25-20. Trevor Lawrence looked amazing. This Jacksonville defense looked amazing. And until late in the game, the Bills' offense and Josh Allen really couldn't pull a lot together, and they just came up a little bit short today.
Yeah, the Jaguars' offense did look good. They were moving the ball, not having too many issues with that, but they were struggling to convert in the red zone. A couple turnovers and settling for field goals was the reason that this game was only a 5-point victory for them. They should have, I don't know about blew out the Bills, but they should have won by a couple scores. And until the Jaguars really went into that prevent defense, the Bills were really struggling to move the ball. Josh Allen ended the game with 359 passing yards, but a lot of that came on the last couple drives, which they ended up cashing in for a couple touchdowns. And then Calvin Ridley looked really good, as well as Etienne. Etienne's loving playing in London, and his couple games, more than 130 yards in each, couple scores today. But the Jags are back on track with a couple wins, getting them above 500.
Travis Etienne with the most scrimmage yards he's had in an NFL game in his career today. He was a big-time reason for the Jaguars' excellent performance. And now we'll look into some live scores as we're doing this at 3:28 p.m. on Sunday, October 8th. So this is Week 5. We'll talk about what we see. And let's go into it first right now, Garrett. This is the 1 o'clock slot. The Houston Texans have been impressive recently. C.J. Stroud has looked like the best player in the draft so far. And he's down right now against a Desmond Ridder-led Atlanta Falcons team, 15-12. But if you're C.J. Stroud, if you're a Texans fan, this is something you haven't seen in a while since the young Deshaun Watson days.
Yeah, and DeMeco Ryans, the new head coach, seems to be the head coach of the future. He's already getting looks at NFL Coach of the Year. I know it's really early, only a month in, but he's done a great job turning the team around. And Will Anderson off the edge, he was the 3rd overall pick right after Stroud, has been a great asset for that defense. But, yeah, when you draft a QB top 5, your team usually isn't very good. So they're 2-2, and they're playing a lot better than I really thought they were. But Stroud has looked really good, and he's been a bright spot. Even if this team I think they're going to miss the playoffs. They'll probably end up with a losing record, but they look very promising, which is what you haven't seen much of from the Texans in the past couple of years since they lost to Sean Watson.
And that's what you want to see from a rookie quarterback in the NFL. You don't have to have the 10-plus win season. You don't have to have a spectacular playoff push. You want to see something that makes you smile for the future and something that players can get behind. They can get behind a guy like C.J. Stroud. They've seen the improvement already, and they see his potential. And so the next game, we'll just go into it right away. Lions, we knew this was going to happen, blowing out the Panthers 28-10 at the moment. David Montgomery, he's been excellent for the Lions this season. Jahmyr Gibbs has been hurt this week, and Jared Goff just continues to play winning football, really. And the Lions, I think they're one of those teams that is going to be in the playoff picture and in the playoff push and a playoff run in the NFC bracket as either the division winner, which it looks like right now the NFC North can be theirs, and if they keep playing like this, will be theirs, or as a wild card team. But I see these Lions as a lock for the playoffs at the moment.
Yeah, this is a game that the Lions would usually lose. They would disappoint, but they're really putting their foot down. They're up 18, about to go in and score again to go up 25 and put this game out of reach at the start of the fourth quarter. But I'm really glad to see them put their foot down. It feels like the Lions, whenever they show promise, they have a letdown. They had that loss earlier to the Seahawks in Week 2 at home, which isn't looking as bad of a loss now because the Seahawks have turned it around. But the Lions really do look like the best team in the NFC North through what we've seen so far, and they've already gone into Lambeau and beat the Packers, so that's a really big win because I think it's going to come down to those two teams. But like you mentioned, you said the Lions are a lock. I don't think I'd put them in that category yet for the playoffs, but it's certainly looking like they could be hosting a playoff game come playoff time.
I like the way they play, and this is why I have them as a lock. Their offensive line, I'm extremely confident in. It's a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. You look at what Montgomery's done. He's been very good. And you look at they have thunder and kind of lightning with Gibbs and Montgomery. Montgomery's a guy in the goal line situations that can punch it in at a consistent basis. And Gibbs is really the guy that can have a home run type hit. And you've seen that from them. I'd like to see Gibbs get a little bit more carries because he's on one of my fantasy teams. But if you're the Lions, this is a bright spot, and you haven't been in for quite some time since I think 2014 was the last time they made the playoffs with Matthew Stafford. And yeah, this is promising.
Yeah, and Jared Goff's done a great job. I would say he's been more than a game manager. He's been a playmaker, and he hasn't turned the ball over, which is the biggest thing.
Winning football. And this is a game, Garrett, that I'm kind of interested to talk about and excited to talk about because the Tennessee Titans are playing the Indianapolis Colts. But the Indianapolis Colts have a legendary punter named Pat McAfee, a guy that's very big right now at the moment, and we had the chance to meet him in South Bend at Notre Dame at College Game Day, and he shouted us out. So if any of you are listening because of Pat McAfee, I highly doubt it, but it'd be pretty awesome, and that was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, for sure. Pat McAfee, great guy, really nice to meet him. Would love to stay in touch with him. But getting back to the football side of things, the Colts are up 20-16, about 4:30 to go in the fourth quarter, and for them it's been a lot like the Texans after that 2-2 start, but the promise at rookie quarterback for them with Anthony Richardson has been there, and it looks like the Colts, who they tried the old veteran experience, first with Phillip Rivers, then with Matt Ryan, then with Carson Wentz, all three of those experiments failing, finally feel like they nailed their quarterback and they have him for the future.
Look at Zach Moss. They just signed Jonathan Taylor as their running back for the future. I don't know if you had to do that, Jim Irsay. I don't know. Zach Moss has been unbelievable as an Indianapolis Colt so far. Today he's got over 120 yards rushing and 2 scores. And he's done this now for 2 weeks. Zach Moss looks really good, and it looks like that is their identity on offense. They don't have to air the ball out a ton. They run the ball with Richardson, and they can run the ball with Moss, and then when Taylor comes back, obviously run the ball with him too.
Yeah, and the Titans are a little bit of a confusing team. Doesn't really feel like you know what you're going to get week in and week out. They're much better at home than on the road, but Tannehill, he's been sort of inconsistent his whole career, and it's been another year like that. I think teams are really just sitting on the run, preventing Henry from doing too much, although he did have a better week last week. But Titans feel like they're going to be a 7-10, 8-9 team. They're kind of in that Steelers situation almost where it's like you want to see them tank because they're not good enough to compete, but their franchise feels like they're just trying to hold on. But I think they have the head coach for a while, and Mike Vrabel, I think they nailed that. He's really good, but this roster just isn't good enough to compete in a loaded AFC.
A roster that is definitely good enough to compete and is one of the reasons the AFC is loaded is the Miami Dolphins. This offense has been unbelievable. Put up 70 points against the Broncos. Just lost to a Bills team in Buffalo by a pretty big margin, over 20 points. So the Dolphins trying to bounce back and are bouncing back against the pitiful New York Giants, 31-13 so far. This offense is explosive. Can we talk about Achane? This guy's been an absolute beast. Tyreek Hill obviously is unbelievable like always, and Tua Tagovailoa, if he stays healthy, this Dolphins offense is going to put up numbers. They're going to put up records, and they're going to be a force in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was at the Bills-Dolphins game last week, actually, and the first 5 possessions were 3 touchdowns for the Bills and 2 touchdowns for the Dolphins teams, just trading scores, and then the Dolphins offense eventually cooled off. But I think it was something ridiculous, like 12 or 14 straight possessions that weren't interrupted by halftime or the end of the game. They had scored a touchdown in, which is just unheard of. And that offense, Mike McDaniel's schemes are just unbelievable the way he draws up plays. So the Dolphins, I think, are cemented themselves a spot in the playoffs, even though it's really early. They're going to move to 4-1, and they're going to be battling the Bills for the AFC East crown all year long.
Yeah, and they're going to be above the Bills right now, even though the Bills have that head-to-head tiebreaker against them because the Bills just lost to the Jags today. And for the Giants, it's been really bad. After a promising 2022 season in which they went to the divisional round in the NFC playoffs and beat the Vikings and then lost to the Eagles, obviously, this has been a sophomore slump, you want to say, for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, Joe Schoen being the general manager and Brian Daboll being the head coach. This Giants team has looked really bad. Daniel Jones has 0 time to throw the ball. Daniel Jones is not playing well. You just paid him $40 million a year, and now Giants fans are already trying to get out of that contract. Well, you're stuck in it, Giants fans. And this is something that's not good, and losing creates bad situations. You saw with Evan Neal, his comments earlier in the week after the Monday night loss to Seattle, in which he basically called out fans for booing. Well, the fans have every right to boo, Evan. You guys have been terrible. You're blocking your own guy, Evan. So if you're the Giants, everything is going wrong. They're lucky they have 1 win this year. And stop and don't attack your fans. They're the one group of people that are actually supporting you during this time and just even watching you, which at this point, how are they even doing it? The Giants have been terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah, the Giants have not been good, and that 1 win was a 21-point comeback on the road at Arizona. Maybe a win the Giants fans wish they didn't even have at this point is 0-5 sounds better than 1-4. They might be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes the way this season has started, but they just paid Daniel Jones, and you're not going to be able to get rid of him. Nobody wants him or that contract, and you're kind of stuck with him now for at least a couple of years. So the Giants are heading in the wrong direction after it looked like last year they were really taking a step forward and heading in the right direction. But another team that we thought was going to be better this year is the New England Patriots. This Bill Belichick-led squad usually gets off to better starts. They're down 31-0 at home to the Saints. They're going to move to 1-4, 0-3 at home, and in a division that's been dominated by the Bills recently, and now the Dolphins stepping up. The Patriots are pretty much out of the running at this point if they're going to keep playing like this.
All right, so the Saints won this game. They're going to go to 3-2, okay? And the Patriots are 1-4. But the bigger picture for the Patriots is this for me. Bill Belichick, I think we got to stop saying, oh, Bill Belichick run squad, they usually play well and all this stuff. No, Bill Belichick, your safety net of having a dynasty for over 20 years, in my opinion, is over. And I think in a lot of the Patriots fans' opinions is too. They have to see something that you do without Tom Brady. The only thing that you've done is with Mac Jones, you made it to the wild card round and lost to the Bills and got blown out. Not even close. You got blown out. What have you done without Tom Brady? That's the question. And are you going to be able to bounce back? You're standing on the point that, oh, we have a good defense. Bill always has a good defense. Even without Mac, we don't need Mac to be excellent, Garrett. We just need a good defense. And Bill, oh, he's got that under control. Is this a good defense? Is it a good defense what you had against the Cowboys? Is it a good defense what you had against the Saints so far? Is it a good defense we've had it all this year? It hasn't been, Bill. And I think you need a little bit of a reality check if you're Robert Kraft to say, where do we stand with this guy? We had a great run. Do we need fresh blood? Do we need something new? And I think it's time for the New England Patriots to move on. As good as you have been, Bill Belichick, if people want to crown him the best coach of all time in the NFL, go ahead. But I think this raises a lot of questions. Was it Brady or was it Belichick? And so far, it has been Brady. And I really think If you're a Patriots front office guy, if you're the owner, Robert Kraft, if you're the GM, if you're just in that room, if you're in that booth, you cannot be happy with what you're seeing, and you got to just move away from the 20 years of domination that you had. You have to get that out of your head, and you got to move on and look what is for best. Look what's best for this franchise.
Yeah, I think Bill Belichick's still one of the greatest coaches of all time, and I think he's still elite at his job. The Patriots' recipe for success had always been they had not Mac Jones back there. They had Tom Brady back there, and so they would honestly just sign guys for 1 or 2 years and then let them go, and then some guys would come crawling back. But they would just keep replacing players, and it was these new guys getting it done time after time. And the New England Patriots they can't be like that, especially with Mac Jones at quarterback. I don't think he's very good at all. This is going to be his last season in New England, I believe, at least as the starter. And the Patriots, it might be time for them to spend some money as well and sign guys to 4 or 5 year deals and lock some guys up for the future, because it just hasn't been working, whatever they've been trying. And the saga between is it Brady or Belichick, I think it was I don't want to say a little bit of both. I think it was more Brady than Belichick, but Belichick's getting up there, and I don't really know if the Patriots are going to compete in his time frame. I think they're going to suffer a couple years of ugly records before they're good again.
Well, and Bill, this is what you did last year. You stunted Mac Jones's growth as a quarterback by having a defensive coordinator and Matt Patricia be your play caller. You didn't have an offensive coordinator last year. Now Bill O'Brien's in there to try to change that and fix that. But you can't treat this guy like he's Tom Brady and he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, he doesn't need a lot of coaching. That's what they've been doing. He's not the second coming. Change your approach or get out. That's what I would say to him. If I would say change your approach, Bill. You gotta be able to rework something. You gotta change what you've done. You can't treat him like he's Tom Brady, or you're fired. And I think that is what is best for the Patriots at this point. But it's crazy to say after 20 years of a complete dynasty that we've come to this point now, Garrett, looking at the New England Patriots.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the last 1 o'clock game, which is the Steelers and the Ravens, and a really wacky game between two teams that no matter the records when they play each other, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. It feels like for either teams, these games are always slugfest. Ravens, Steelers, they always have been. It feels like they always will be. And today is no other. It was 10-8 right now. The Steelers do not have a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. They have 2 field goals and a safety. The last couple of minutes have been absolute chaos. The Steelers blocked a punt and got a safety, and then they received the ball back, and the Steelers had to punt, so then the Ravens got it. The Ravens punted, then the Steelers guy muffs the punt, and the Ravens get the ball first and goal, and then on 3rd and goal, Lamar is intercepted by Joey Porter. So now the Steelers get it with a touchback. With 4 minutes to go, they trail 10-8 in a really ugly game. But as a Steelers fan, I obviously want to win this game, and as stupid as it sounds, it put us in first in the division, but we're not going anywhere with this roster. Matt Canada needs to go ASAP. I thought he should have been fired after last year. He's now creating burner accounts on Twitter to defend himself. But Kenny Pickett, he's just not the answer. He's a good backup quarterback, and he's just average. With the team we put around him, we're not going anywhere. We can't. Kenny Pickett has a record of 9-7 in his 16 starts, and his team's averaging 17 points a game. You can't win in playoff games like that. You can win regular season games because Mike Tomlin is just such a good coach and he knows how to win, but we saw it a couple of years ago. They snuck in as the 7th seed and the Chiefs just absolutely trounced them, so that's just going to keep happening. You got to just give up the winning record thing and just tank for a couple of years and try to rebuild, because the offensive line is horrible. Najee Harris, sure, he's not as good as his rookie year, but he's not given a fair opportunity. No one is when you put that offensive line in front of him. So I know it was a little bit of a rant, probably more than you guys wanted to hear, but the Steelers just need to pick a direction. Right now they're kind of just floating.
Well, I think Garrett just said everything that needs to be said about the Steelers. There's nothing for me to add on to that besides that you're really into tanking today. That's a common episode. Garrett, tanking is terrible for the sport. You mean tanking in the sense of, oh, let's not try to sign free agents and build up this roster and just spend extra money on veterans that are meant for winning teams. Not just, oh, let's do what the Eagles did that one year and play Nate Sudfeld against the Washington Commanders on primetime Sunday Night Football. That was tanking. That's bad. But if they shouldn't be trying to build something around Kenny Pickett. That's not the answer. That's not the idea. And on the other hand, for the Ravens, this is a divisional game, so I get it why it's close. But the Ravens, I think they are kind of where they've always been. People thought there would be a big change this year. They got Zay Flowers, they got Odell Beckham, but the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, I think they are a talented team. They can do some. They can always get a good record. They can get double-digit wins, but I don't see them competing in, I'd say, the big three of the AFC at the moment, which before today was the Bills, the Chiefs, and I'd say the Dolphins. Now there's questions with the Bills or the Jags in there. It's kind of floating. Is there a big three or not? So
Well,
I just,
in the
anyways,
Chiefs.
yeah, and the Chiefs. No, that's what I said. Yeah, the Chiefs
Yeah,
are
the Chiefs, Dolphins, Bills.
Chiefs, Dolphins, Bills was before today.
And we thought the Bengals were going to be in there. At
We
the
thought the
start of year.
Bengals went awful. We'll get to them later. And it's a little, and maybe it changed, but the Ravens are not in that picture for me. They're not in one of those contender spots for me in the AFC. I see them in the playoffs as a playoff team, but not much further than that.
No, a team that you have a lot of love for, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Rams, kicking it off at 4:05, one of our later games here. And the Eagles, one of two undefeated teams remaining in the NFL, both in the NFC. They'll travel to SoFi Stadium to take on the LA Rams, like I just mentioned. The Rams are a team who I thought was going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes with just how bad they are at some positions, but rookie Puka Nacua, he has like 39 receptions through like 4 games, I think it was, or something insane like that. He's averaging like 10 catches a game. It's like the rookie record.
39 catches for 501 yards this season.
Most through 4 games ever by a rookie. And they're going to get Cooper Kupp back today, which it'll be interesting to see how they play that, because for the Rams, it feels like that slot receiver just dominates all the catches, all the yards, and a lot of times most of the touchdowns. But Matthew Stafford has looked better this year. His touchdown to interception ratio isn't great, but they have a chance to really prove themselves today and move over 500 and put a loss, the first for the Eagles, in that loss column.
Call this bias, call it whatever. This is a common theme and a common take that a lot of people around the NFL have had. The Eagles are by far the worst undefeated team that people have seen in a little bit of time. I guess you could say the Steelers when they were 11-0, but that's a little bit. That's a while ago. We're saying right now, out of the Niners and the Eagles, it's not even close. The Niners are playing great football, and the Eagles are playing. You're watching them, and you're like, oh, they could have had a loss against the Patriots, who are terrible. They could have had a loss last week in overtime against the Commanders. They're not good. So they just got blown out by the Bears, so that tells you something.
Yeah, but I know you're a Cowboys fan, so it's hard to imagine, but if you're an Eagles fan, you have to think, oh, we're undefeated and we're not even playing that great of football, which is encouraging for fans of the team residing in Philly.
I mean, the question is, will they be playing better football down the stretch? We don't know. That's what we'll see. But
we don't know with any team.
Yeah, but let's look at it. They have no injury so far on their offensive line and on their defensive line. So without injuries usually come, so that means the team will probably not be playing as good. So it's not the best thing you want to see. But regardless, the Eagles are going into SoFi today, and I think this is actually going to be a loss, Garrett. We were talking about this earlier, and I think what the Rams can do against this Eagle secondary that hasn't been that impressive outside of Darius Slay, I think they can actually expose them. With Kupp coming back, that's huge, and Nacua, who's been amazing. How could you not look for that again in this game? But then you look on the other side of the ball, the Eagles, this is where I think they can kind of expose the Rams and might be able to win. This running game with DeAndre Swift, it's not really DeAndre Swift, it's the Eagles' offensive line. It's the best offensive line in football. It's a great offensive line, and when they are healthy, which they have been for the past year and a half now, they are dominant, and they are dominant against every team, regardless of who they're going against. I mean, Aaron Donald is on there for the Rams, but outside of him, it's a little bit of a lonely show on the defensive line for LA. And I think the Eagles, that's where their key is going to be. But I do have the Rams pulling this out. I think they're going to be able to put up points. And at the end of the day, I haven't been super impressed with Philly, and neither is really anybody.
Yeah, we have breaking news, a 41-yard touchdown pass from Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, the dynamic duo
Of Matt Canada calling the plays.
So far, they've been in a sophomore slump, but maybe a breakout here. The Steelers go on top 14-10, pending a 2-point try, I'm assuming. But back to the Eagles-Rams game. I have the Rams as well, but this is going to be a really good game, I think. The Rams surprising me. The Eagles they've kind of just been boring this year. They haven't been playing good, but they're undefeated, and you kind of knew that they were going to be good, but we'll see. I think, honestly, that could have been America's game of the week, but Instead, they picked Chiefs and Vikings. The
Yeah.
Chiefs 3-1, the Vikings 1-3. Vikings very underwhelming this year. The Chiefs, they're kind of like the Eagles, except they are 3-1, but they just really haven't played good either.
Kirk Cousins has played amazing for the Vikings. He's got 11 touchdown passes this year. And Justin Jefferson obviously is a beast. So with the Vikings and the Chiefs, you look at this game, I can see it being somewhat close because the Vikings do put up points and they lose close games. But at the same time, Kansas City, they're coming off a kind of sluggish week against the Jets, and I think they're going to be able to put points up and be a little bit frustrated of what happened last time. They're back in Arrowhead. They're ready to show something. They're ready to roll, and they're ready to be like, okay, enough of what happened last week. Zach Wilson almost got us. The refs kind of saved us. Let's move on from that.
Yeah, but the Chiefs, 3 of their 4 games this year, the loss on opening night to the Lions, which they looked abysmal. The Lions didn't even play good, and they still won in Arrowhead. The game against the Jaguars, which the Jaguars couldn't score for whatever reason, and the Chiefs were able to sniff out like a 14-9, 14-10 win there. And then last week against the Jets, they looked sluggish again. So
I think this Chiefs defense is good though, Garrett. That's where you got to point to them. You got to give them the credit as well.
yeah, they did just get lit up by Zach Wilson, who
Not lit up.
I mean,
He did
compared to what he's
not
done,
have a lot of points. He
compared his-
had one drive where he looked like Dan Marino, and that was something. And he's got the same kind of throwing release as Aaron Rodgers, so that's interesting too.
Yeah, if you look at his stats in other games, he certainly played a lot better. But the Chiefs remind me a lot of the Eagles, where we know they're in the top 2 or 3 teams in their conference, but they just haven't played up to their potential.
Yeah, I think they've played better than Philly if you're comparing those two teams, the 2 Super Bowl teams from last year, just because you've seen more out of Patrick Mahomes. You've seen more from him. I mean, last game he wasn't anything special, let's be honest, until the plays that he needed to make for his team to win it. But Jalen Hurts hasn't really made a ton of great plays, and the Eagles have played much worse competition than Kansas City, so that's where I think it's a little bit different, and the Chiefs have looked a little bit better.
Chiefs don't have the tush push in the playbook, though.
Yeah, that play should be banned.
A game between a couple of 1-3 teams, one who we certainly didn't think was going to be 1-3, is the Bengals. They'll travel to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, who have been successfully tanking. They've taken halftime leads into 3 out of 4 games. They won one of them. They blew a 21-point lead in another. And they've looked solid, but the record's 1-3, which is sort of what they wanted to do. So they're sort of in that good spot of being competitive but not winning games, which we know they're not going to be a playoff team and they're not going to win a playoff game. So to be competitive but still lose is sort of the goal.
If you're the Dallas Cowboys, how did you lose that game? It's so weird when you look at Dallas. I know this isn't really about Dallas right now, but the fact that the Cardinals won that game is unbelievable. They're not trying to win, like you said. It doesn't feel like it. Look what they do. They just run the ball the whole game. Josh Dobbs, he doesn't really make mistakes, which has been impressive. He's a backup quarterback, though. It's Josh Dobbs. What are we doing? And so, I mean, the fact that the Cowboys lost that game was so disappointing because they've blown out every single other team that they've played. And we'll get into that, why that's really America's game of the week today. But on the Bengals side of the ball, when are they going to get right? That's the question. When is Joe Burrow going to show up? When are they going to? I know that injury is looming, but the excuse has to stop. You're 1-3. You gotta come out of it. You gotta pull up in the big moments, and they haven't done that. And this should be a get right game, but who knows? The Cardinals have potential to knock off teams as you've seen.
And other breaking news: Alex Highsmith, a strip sack that T.J. Watt recovers the fumble, and the Steelers look like they're going to win as they get the ball at the Ravens' 18-yard line, up 4 with 1:02 to go. Just a real gritty win.
So many Steelers fans just aching for this right now, Garrett.
From the boys.
Yes.
I mean, you'll love to see it.
All right, anyways, Jets Broncos.
No. I wanted to make one more
right.
comment about the Bengals-Cardinals game. You mentioned the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals. I was watching the Pat McAfee show, actually, and they had Aaron Rodgers on, and he was saying,
Pat McAfee's fan of CR Sports Podcast. By the way.
They were talking about just how the Cardinals, how did they beat the Cowboys? Like, the Cowboys looked like the best team ever, and the Cardinals didn't look good at all. But Aaron Rodgers was saying, like, every single NFL team has talented players. There's not that big of a gap as you think between the best team and the worst team. Every team has the potential to go out there and beat any team, which you saw in that case. It's like, yeah, the Cardinals might not have 22 good players, but they have 3 or 4 really good players. And on a day where those guys are clicking, anything can happen.
And they're all ultra talented, every single player on the team. And that's why people make the stupid comparison of, oh, what if we have Georgia play the Cardinals, or we have Georgia play the Giants? The Giants might lose, but realistically, no, they're not going to lose. These are the best college players that they got.
Let me just say, I am a big proponent of that. I always want to see a college team go up against the worst NFL team.
It won't happen. But they'd lose.
It won't happen, and I know they would lose, but I'd just really be interested to see, because some of those Alabama teams are very good.
Or the 2019 LSU team with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson.
Pretty much its whole roster is dominating the NFL now.
Yeah.
But the final is the Colts have beaten the Titans to move to 3-2, so now they'll tie the Jaguars atop the division. But we got one more 4 o'clock game to talk about: the Jets and Broncos. Broncos got on track with a win. Jets almost upset the Chiefs. Couple 1-3 teams playing at Arrowhead. I think the Broncos are gonna get a win. They're second in a row and move to 2-3. Give Broncos country some hope. And the Jets, we've seen all this talk about Aaron Rodgers coming back. They might be out of the playoffs even if he comes back. Zach Wilson isn't good.
That's the goal. You got to stay alive if you're the Jets. You want to win some games. So if and when Aaron Rodgers returns, you're in the playoffs and he's playing for something meaningful instead of just garbage time and garbage games. He probably won't come back if that's the scenario. But last week would have been huge for the Jets. A win against the Chiefs, that would have been a huge win. That would have been crazy. That would have changed everyone's thought process. Everyone's thought process did change on Zach Wilson without the win. So can you imagine if they actually won that game? Refs were really questionable, but I do have the Broncos winning this game. I don't think that Zach Wilson hasn't proven at least that he can do what he did last week on a consistent basis. He has an opportunity to do that today.
Yeah, and then the night game, the one that you want to talk about, Cowboys 49ers. 2 of the top 3 teams. I think it's honestly we're gonna have to say 4 teams with the way the Lions have been playing. I think it's
Tier
safe
1,
to say
Tier 1 is
the Cowboys, 49ers, Eagles, and Lions have separated themselves so far above the rest, and the 49ers just really haven't been tested, so we haven't seen much from them.
How do you go from the Lions aren't a playoff lock yet, and then saying they're one of the top 4 teams?
What if the Lions done that you can earn your trust in them over the last 10 seasons?
Well, then why didn't you think they're a playoff lock?
Because I just said they don't have my
okay,
trust.
okay.
I think right now they're really good, but
the Cowboys, the Eagles, and 49ers have proven that they can consistently make the playoffs.
Yeah, and the Lions.
So that's why they're the top 3 teams, I think, and the Lions are just a smidge below that.
I think the Lions have done just as much to prove that they're there. I just don't trust the Lions because of what they've done for so long, and these other teams have sustained it. I think the Lions are going to make the playoffs, but I can't put them in that lock category.
Okay.
But the 49ers, they haven't really been tested. They've kind of just cruised through their schedule, and that could end tonight. They might have – I think this is going to be a close game. I actually picked the Cowboys to win. I think we're going to see Dak Prescott. I think this is a game where he's going to have to be the deciding factor for the Cowboys, but Lions favored by 3 – or the 49ers favored by 3.5. This game could go either way.
So this is where I disagree with the Herds in the idea of – Dak Prescott has to be the guy to win this game for the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott has to outplay. He's got to outplay Brock Purdy. He's got to outplay the whole 49ers defense. Now, this is what Dak Prescott has to do. Dak Prescott can't make the mistakes that he made in the divisional round last year, the 2 interceptions that were extremely costly. You look at what the Cowboys did and the Niners did when they played in Santa Clara last year in the divisional round in which the Niners won. The Cowboys defense played excellent. They played excellent. They stopped the 49ers offense. They held them to under 20 points. They held them to 19 points, actually. And Dak Prescott threw 2 terrible interceptions. He has not done that so far this year. This Cowboys defense, even though they're without Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland stepped up big time last week, and there's promise there. But you're led by Micah Parsons and a defensive line that is absolutely unbelievable, the best in the league. And you have a secondary, even without Trayvon Diggs, that has been really good, and it's way above average, and their safeties are very good as well. But this is the key to the game. The Dallas Cowboys defense has to stop Christian McCaffrey. No one has been able to do it so far this year. And Brock Purdy has been a machine, and the fact that he was 20 of 21, I think, last game. He had only 1 incomplete pass, a 49ers record. This guy has not thrown a pick yet this year. You have to be able to stop this offense. You have to slow them down at least. You have to hold them to under 25 points. And this is what you have to do if you're Dak Prescott on the Dallas Cowboys offense, Garrett. You have to play winning football. You cannot turn the ball over, and your points will come. This defense, the special teams, and this offense have shown you, from the Cowboys side of the ball, that they can they can play winning football. They can win games. But once the bad plays start happening, once the turnovers start happening, once the defense gets ran through, like you saw in the Cardinals game, James Conner was running it down their throat. That is a terrible thing that happened and that could happen if Christian McCaffrey does that today. But you look at what the Cowboys have done with their pass rush, and I'm taking them. Call it bias, call it whatever. My heart is making this pick. I got the Cowboys in the game of the year. Week 5 Sunday Night Football. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth on the call. It's going to be electric. It's going to be unbelievable. And this is going to be the biggest regular season win that I can remember as a Dallas Cowboys fan in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, the game of the year, is going on right now in Pittsburgh as they're about to win and be atop of the AFC North by themselves. But, yeah, it's going to be a good one tonight. It's pretty much a pick 'em because the 49ers are favored by 3.5 at home, so they'd be favored by like a half a point on a neutral field. But I think they're going to press up a little more, and they're not going to let Pollard in the rushing attack beat them. They're going to make Prescott beat him down the field, and we'll see if he can do that. And for the 49ers, I think if you're the Cowboys, you just have to take away McCaffrey and make Brock Purdy beat you. Right now, Brock Purdy's sort of just a robot. He's just
That's what Kyle Brandt says, yeah.
They're telling him what to do, and he's doing it, and it's working because of Kyle Shanahan's a genius.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan's a genius, and I think we got to start giving a little bit more credit to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has looked excellent. And this is going to be a fun game. This is a fun week. We're glad to be back on CR Sports, Garrett. What?
You're forgetting the Monday night game.
We are forgetting the Monday night game.
Packers and Raiders.
Packers-Raiders, I'll go through it pretty fast. The Raiders are playing for nothing this year. They're not good. The Jordan Love-led Packers, I've liked it so far. I think they're going to win. I think it's going to not be close. I think they're easily going to win. I don't think the Raiders have anything going on besides Devontae Adams. You throw him the ball.
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer, but I'll take the Packers. Jordan Love's had his up and downs. The Packers probably going to contend for a wild card spot, maybe even the division with the Lions, but the Raiders are not good. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not the long-term answer. Josh McDaniels is gone after the season, and they're going to be back to stage 1.
Well, that will do it now for Week 5 of the NFL season, and we're sorry that we had a little bit of a missed weeks.
A lapse.
A lapse is like a lot of people like to call it, but we had technical difficulties on one of our episodes, which actually brought the return of a sometimes frequent guest in past appearances on the CR Sports podcast. Maybe we'll see him again. Maybe you'll actually see him with audio working this next time. But we're excited that you listened to this episode of the CR Sports Podcast, one of Pat McAfee's favorite podcasts out there. And we're going to follow the MLB postseason as well. So follow it all with us here on CR Sports.
Yeah, we got a big ALDS game to go catch, so we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.